Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube demonstration. My name is Mitchell and today what we're going to be taking a look at is getting Infraworks context, building roads, etc. through to Twinmotion in a very easy couple clicks. Not a very complicated process at all. So if you do have a AEC collection or full version of Infraworks as well as Revit, you can get this content from Infraworks into Twinmotion via a FBX file. Very simple process. So I'm going to take you through the process that you would essentially do with these two pieces of software, and also just flag a couple of things that I've found throughout the testing that I've done. And please, as always, just know that this is fully interactive, so if you have any questions during, please feel free to type it in the chat and we can deal with anything that comes up in real time. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is just talk to you a little bit about Infraworks, because this is where the context comes from. So obviously when you're developing a site, or if you're developing a larger area, the context is always relevant. It's important to see, it's important to know a little bit about it, and to have it there in the background is also just quite handy. So Infraworks has something called the Model Builder. Model Builder is a very powerful tool that generates 3D contextual information off of satellite imagery, essentially. So once you open up Infraworks, this is going to be your interface. I don't have a project that I want to open. I'm not going to start a new project or anything like that. I'm going to go straight to the Model Builder. So when I select the Model Builder, what will happen is a new window will appear here. So just to quickly give you a little bit of info about this, very handy tool to have in general. In a lot of the Autodesk softwares, you've got this little question mark in the upper right hand corner over here, which is basically just a link to the online help or manuals about the software that you're choosing. So if I can just bring this here quickly, I can see that I've got a Model Builder option over here. So just to draw your attention quickly where it's getting the information from. Roads, railways, as well as buildings all come from the OpenStreetMap service. The imagery, the satellite imagery, comes from Bing Maps, and the water also comes from OpenStreetMaps. But there's a lot of information here that you can basically tap into and have a look at. Okay, so let's get back to the process. So I'm going to select Model Builder. I'm going to expand this, and it will know where your location is, so it'll kind of pinpoint you to wherever it is that you are in the world. If you look at the top right hand corner over here, you do have a satellite image that you can switch to as well. So that feature is there. At the top, you've basically got 4 options. These are your selection options to grab the terrain or the surroundings that you're interested in acquiring. And then down here at the bottom, you can see that you have a little message that says selected area is too large. Please select an area less than 200 square kilometers. So that is the first point. The first point is you can select a very big area of context to grab and to pull into your Twinmotion project. Okay. You get up to, as the message suggests, 200 square kilometers that you can pull in. So you can cover a really big area with this. So we'll go and zoom into the Cape Town area, which is where we are broadcasting this from. As you get closer, you'll see that this model name box pops up here. So as soon as you're within the 200 kilometer range, you'll get this option that pops up here. So let's talk about the different selection options that you have up here. The first one is just the extents of your screen. It will basically capture that information. So whatever I am looking at right now, this entire section over here, because it is less than 200 square kilometers, will be captured and I can export that information. I have a couple of other options. For one, I can draw a rectangle. Right, so I click and drag the area. It'll give me the square kilometer in the middle there. You can see I'm on 3.86, so I have a ton of expansion that I can do with this. So I can pull this in all directions to get exactly the information that I would like. Alternatively, if I want to be a bit more precise with my selections and I want to get a very specific area, I do have a polygon option where I can do several clicks. And you know, if I wanted to outline this mountain, for example, I could literally do something like that, right? So if I didn't want to include the mountain in the context, I could sort of just exclude it by just selecting my way around the extent of it. Okay, so for this example, I will use sort of quite a big area over here of Cape Town. I have already exported it because I don't want to obviously wait for that process to happen. It's not very long, but just in the interest of saving time, I have already created an area. But I will nevertheless do the export. I just won't wait for it. Okay, so I'm going to select whatever area it is I want. Let's say that it's like quite a big portion of Cape Town. We want to get the whole CBD, and we want to get some mountain context here as well. So I can do my selection. I can give my model a name over here. So I will just call it Cape Town Surrounds as an example. And then you need to select the coordinate system as well. If unsure, select LL84. So this is what I do. I am by no means an Infraworks expert. I just use Infraworks to actually produce the model and then take it through to Twinmotion to do the visualization. So I just go with the default LL84 that they suggest, and I say create model. Okay, so that more or less is pretty much everything we have to do. Infraworks takes care of the rest for us. So it'll say we are preparing your model. When the model is complete, you will also get an email that gets sent to you saying that the Infraworks model that you have created is now available and ready to use. Okay. And where you find that information would be just in your Infraworks home screen. So you can see that I've created a couple of examples here in the past. The one that I just created now is still being created, so it won't list in my list yet. But the process to get it there, it doesn't take long at all. Maybe 2 minutes at the max, I would say, before that information actually comes through here. So again, in the interest of saving time, I've already created one previously, so I'm going to go into this one called Table Mountain, which is roughly the same area, but just a bit smaller though. I didn't do as large extents as I just did with that demo. So when your item comes up in the list over here, you simply click it, right? And it will open up that model inside of Infraworks now itself, because you get Model Builder, which is sort of a separate function of Infraworks, slightly detached, and then you get the actual Infraworks model. Okay, so in this example, what I've done is I've grabbed a little bit of Table Mountain, as you can see, and again, sort of a Aranya slash the CBD. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in over here and just take a look at a couple things. So you can see that the context, terrain, the elevation levels all comes through for me, gets created for me. If I zoom in a bit closer to the context over here, I can see that I have buildings, I have roadways, all on top, by the way, of a Google map as well. Okay. So some things it won't place. Okay, so for example, if I have a look at this little section over here, I can see quite clearly that no houses have been created in that location. Now, I can either be happy with that, or here in Infraworks, I can actually do a little bit of construction as well, very basic modeling to place buildings where I would like them to be. Maybe the area that I've chosen, you know, if I was designing a house right there in that location, I can see that the surrounding houses are not really being picked up. To give it some context, I could create my own little houses here in Infraworks very quickly. And it is also very easy to do that as well. But just straight off the bat, this is just from the model builder, selecting an area, creating a model. I haven't created anything here myself. All I did was select the area. And this is basically the amount of context and information that you get from just making that selection. So this is why this process of getting the context into your Twinmotion is so easy, because there's not too much work that we really have to do here. So let's say, for example, I know the height of a particular building. Okay, so let's just use this one for example. If I select it, in my properties on the right hand side of here, I've got roof height sitting at 15 meters, as we can see. Now, I have the ability to make modifications to that by just simply clicking on that arrow and dragging it up or down. Okay? And actually updating the height of that specific building if the model builder doesn't get it quite right. So I do have the ability to change things here in Infraworks before I export it for Twinmotion usage. And I've got all of these little nodes at the bottom over here, which I can click and drag around and restructure the building, recreate it in any way that I want to. Okay, if I am interested in creating a basic building, I can go up to create over here. I can select under structures, there's a building option. And I've got a bunch of different facade options that I can essentially choose from over here. So let's say that I went for that one. I can just select it. Now my mouse turns into a little drawing tool, and I literally just click individual clicks how I want this building to look. So you can see it's a polygon option again, and I can design any shape that I need to over here if I want something like this. And when I'm done, I double click. Okay, and then that building gets created. And again, I can of course then select it, and I can adjust the heights, or I can readjust my nodes to change the structure of the building once more. In addition to doing that, if there are things like roadways that haven't been created where there should be roadways, I have very basic tool or very advanced tools, but I can use them in a basic way to just create a roadway between 2 points. So I can go to what is called a component road, and I could literally in this case just kind of click on that road, go halfway somewhere, and then click on that road in the distance over there. Could end the draw, and I will get my road, and the terrain gets manipulated as well. So you can see it builds up the terrain underneath that road to sort of make room for it. And I can also edit any existing roads as well if I would like to do that. So I can select them, and again I can just move them up and down, and the terrain responds to that movement. And again, I will get that terrain that has been adjusted inside of Twinmotion. So anything that I do here at Infraworks is going to basically allow me to visualize it in Twinmotion the way that I would like to. Okay, so I'm not going to make any more changes over here. I'm basically done with what I want to do over here. And again, bearing in mind that you don't really have to do anything in Infraworks. You can just create the model and immediately export just to get that context through to your Twinmotion project. All right, so to do that, I am going to press F7 on my keyboard is the shortcut to export your project. Otherwise, you can go to Present Share tab over here, and this first little option under the Share panel is called Export 3D Model. Okay, so a couple options here again. Use Entire Model will be ticked by default, which obviously is just everything that I'm looking at will be exported as an FBX file. If I don't want to do that, if I want to again narrow down my selection even more over here, I can use a polygon tool again to specifically click the area that I would like to export as my FBX. So I could go untick Use Entire Model. Instead of doing a bounding box, which is basically square or rectangular, I can go for a polygon. And now I can select the very specific area of the project and double click when I'm done to export this as the FBX. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to export the entire project. So that's the first thing that I need to be aware of. Next thing that I need to be aware of is where am I going to save this file. Okay, so you can see currently it's going to the desktop. I want to change that a little bit, and I'll call this Twinmotion Demo, for example. Okay, and then finally down here, this is a very important step. The second option here is called Merge Objects with the Same Texture. So if you're familiar with Twinmotion, what this process is doing is it's the same as collapsing by material inside of Twinmotion. Okay. So if I leave this option ticked, which is what I want to do in most cases because it's far less intensive on your machine in terms of processing power. So if I leave that ticked, all the textures in the background over here in this model that are the same will be linked inside of Twinmotion. Meaning that if I click one object and let's say 5 other objects share that same texture, if I just click any one of them, all 6 of them will be selected. and I'll move all 6 of them simultaneously, or I'll apply materials to all 6 of them simultaneously. So I don't break it apart, they're controlled as one single group. If I untick this, every single thing inside of this project that I see behind me over here will be a separate instance, and I will be able to apply materials to every single object independently. So I won't affect anything else in the project. So that might sound good, but I must just say that this is quite intensive on your machine. So I can give you a basic example over here. I have done a couple of tests over here. These 2 files, Cape Town area and then Cape Town area not merged textures. Look at the file difference between those. Okay, so for exactly the same area, having this feature over here ticked on will give you a far smaller file size to deal with, because again, it's combining textures together, so there's less information to compute. Now, exactly the same area is roughly 6 times bigger if I uncheck that option and I make everything independent or individual. So I would just advise against switching that off, unless obviously there is a specific reason why you need to have everything independent and you like to apply materials, then of course that's fine. But I think for general usage, it would be better to keep that ticked. And once I am done with all of this setup, so again, it's just 3 things that I basically need to pay attention to. Whether I want the entire model or not, where am I going to save the file to, and then finally, do I want to merge the textures of the objects together or not. Okay, once I'm done with that, I can hit export. So this format that it's exporting to right now is an FBX file. Now the FBX file in this case is obviously absolutely perfect, because that is the file type that we import into Twinmotion when we're doing imports. So again, there's no intermediate program that I have to go to switch file types and convert to other types. It's just all done from Infraworks, and then the product that I get from Infraworks into Twinmotion is basically immediately usable. Okay, so again, just for reference, we can see that this is a very, very big area. Okay, and if we go and take a look quickly at the file size that it has produced, okay, we can see that that is 80 megs. So that FBX file is 80 megs, which again is like, it's quite big for a file size, but for the amount of data that you're getting, it's really not at all bad. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go and launch Twinmotion, and we're going to bring this into Twinmotion. So I'm using a Twinmotion 2023.1.2, which is the latest release that is available. Okay, I'll start off with some very basic cleanup over here. Just remove all that existing information that comes with Twinmotion, and I'll just put in a flat piece of terrain. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go and import. It's going to be geometry, not direct link landscape or point cloud. And I will go and select the Twinmotion demo, and I will open that up. Now, we did cover all of these options in the previous broadcast that we did. For collapse, you're going to leave that as keep hierarchy. Now, the next thing is actually very important. So here, with your material conflicts, if you want to get an exact replica of this in terms of colors and, you know, the actual landscape colors and shading, etc., you need to select keep both for your method here. Use scene material, use imported material. Neither of those will yield the result that you get from Infraworks. So you do need to select keep both and then say okay. Okay, and then we wait for the importing process to happen. So again, not a very long time at all for an 80 meg file. Okay, so we can see it takes roughly about 10 to 15 seconds. Select my Twinmotion demo. Here is my context now inside of Twinmotion. So I will just move it more closely to the center of the overall Twinmotion environment. Okay, get it to a point where I'm quite happy with. Okay, and then we can get a bit closer over here and start to take a look. So first thing that is quite nice to notice is just how seemingly optimized it is. Like, I don't have any sort of lag over here. And just to give you an idea of specs, this is a RTX 3060 inside of a laptop. And the quality settings are on medium, so they're not being pushed at all. But again, when I work in Twinmotion, if I'm working with very big projects like this, I generally just switch the quality down to maybe even low while I'm working, just so I'm putting less strain on my PC and I don't have any jitters or lags or stuttering effects. Until the end, when I actually want to get a better idea of how things are going to look, I can obviously bump the quality up to get a quick look at that. But apart from that, I work on a much lower quality. Okay, so again, looking at all the information that comes through over here, I can see that I've actually got, for example, a road. Again, remember, Infraworks designed the road for me. Here in Twinmotion, I can still select these objects. Okay, but notice what happens here. So I selected that road. If I had to delete that road right now, it would delete all the roads. Right, so remember, that's the setting inside of Infraworks when we export that says merge the textures together. Those roads are clearly all the same textures. So if I select it and I try to delete a portion of it, it won't delete a portion, it will delete the entire thing. So that's where I say if you need to delete certain things, you can not merge the textures together so that everything's an independent item. Or you can just delete it inside of Infraworks before you bring it into Twinmotion. That's also another option. Okay, so really, really nice surrounds, as you can see. I mean, for a project that I would be working on, you know, let's say that I'm designing a little building, coffee shop, restaurant, whatever it is in this area over here. I mean, getting an understanding of the site, of the context, of the surrounds, and also just like sight lines of the mountain and things like that, it's so useful to be able to have this amount of context inside of a project. And bearing in mind, this is probably maybe about a fifth of the size that is actually capable of being brought into Twinmotion. So I did a test with the largest amount of area that I could bring into the project, and you can see pretty much the entirety of Cape Town, going all the way to Clifton and Camps Bay, and going quite far up north as well. So this is essentially a small portion, and as soon as I'm done with this, I will open up the largest one that I did, just so that we can have a look at how much context you get. But of course, from this point, you are just going to continue on with your own Twinmotion project as normal. Right, so if I want to bring in another file over here, so let me go and quickly just get another FBX file over here that I can bring in. Okay, in this case it's a building, so I'm not really worried about the material. Okay, select my item, press F. So if I select my item and press F, F is the shortcut for focus. So it just brings me directly to the item, because clearly I have a huge piece of context in here, right? So my building that I bring in is obviously going to get quite lost, and I'm not going to be able to find it. So it would be important to select it, press F, or what you can do is right click and you can say zoom to selection. That's another option as well. Just misclicked there, so I'm going to select it again, move it, and now I just kind of, you know, move it into the viewable zone for now. Just get it into the project so that I can see it, and now obviously I can do whatever it is that I want to do with this. I can start to place it where I'm actually building my site. And I've got all this extremely useful, obviously, context around me over here. So I'm just going to push it over here, drop it roughly down to where I want it to be. bearing in mind again that this is just very, very quick work. I'm not being precise about anything that I'm doing here right now. Okay, so let me just collapse that a bit because our unit has expanded itself, so it's difficult to select the entire thing. Okay, and then I could, of course, proceed to do my actual design right here with all the context. Now, even with the context, you can still apply materials to it as you normally would with Twinmotion. You know, so if you're not happy with this facade over here, for example, there's nothing stopping me from going and changing that information and actually making it Twinmotion materials rather than the facades that come from Infraworks. And if I have any water, for example, right? Remember, because all the textures are combined, I can change the material to water, and it will affect everything that has a water material inside of that Infraworks model. Okay, so there, if I come over here, I can see that this little item has also got the water. Right? If I had anything from the VNA, because there is a lot of water obviously in that area, that all gets taken into account. I can change the material of the roads as well, which is also something that I probably would want to do, because then I have control over it and I can adjust various settings. So I could go, let's actually not go concrete, let's go ground, man-made, something like asphalt. Okay, and then of course I've got all my Twinmotion settings, so I could start to increase the grunge a bit just to get a bit of a textured feel to the road. I can make modifications to my pavement over here. Let's just go with pretty much anything for now. Okay, I could do something like that. Let's go get some brick, replace that existing brick. Okay, adjust the scale slightly. Okay, so we can build up this Infraworks model the same way that we do with our regular Twinmotion models as well. Hello, Fong. Am I saying your name correctly? Welcome. I have a question. I create the road model. Sometimes we need to divide the terrain model into a few parts too. The excavation part, the filling part, how can I divide them for each FBX file if they are in the same Infraworks file? Okay, so road model, divide the terrain model into a few parts too. So I might not be able to give you a concrete example of how to do that, unfortunately, because I'm not really too much of an Infraworks specialist, but I do know that you do have a basic option when it comes to that, where you can at least divide the ground versus the buildings. So you can split those on export and create two separate FBX files for, one for the ground, one for the building. I'm not sure if there is perhaps more that you can do here. Perhaps there is. Maybe there are ways that you can manipulate that in terms of what specific items you're exporting. Yeah, so that's the only thing that I could really recommend for now. I would perhaps explore a way of being able to isolate roads here in Infraworks. I imagine there must be some sort of way that you can do that visually. And then I would just select the roads, delete everything else, export that. Then you can just do maybe a basic undo, get all the context back, delete the roads, export the buildings. Those are the sort of things that I would maybe just have a look at and try and figure out if that's possible. Unfortunately, I don't have any concrete answer for you with regards to that. Okay, I hope that is a little bit helpful, but if you do have any other questions, you can let me know. I can always see if I do know, but yeah, Infraworks not really a tool that I use very regularly apart from context export. Okay, so we can continue, of course, as I mentioned, to build up this information Okay, we can assign whatever information we want over here. I'm just creating very sort of random things. I'm not really paying too much attention to the materials. Okay, very little attention to the materials right now, but what I'm just trying to show is that we obviously now have this entire surrounding for us. So whether it's taking interior shots and wanting to see what we're going to look out onto in the Cape Town context, and of course not just Cape Town but globally, doesn't matter. Okay, we can get really good ideas of the spaces and what we're going to be able to see from those locations, just right here in Twinmotion, which I think is just a really powerful thing to be able to do. Because when full ground has a different material from the existing ground, that's what I want. When full ground has a different material from the existing ground. Okay. Yes, I hear you. I see what you're trying to do. I can do some exploring on my side. It is probably worth, it'll be worth my time to go a bit more into Infraworks and get a better understanding of things that you can do, especially if this is a workflow. But for this demonstration, it is just kind of a basic, get the context from Infraworks, take it into Twinmotion, and then Twinmotion is kind of the more of the focus of this particular demo. But thanks very much for your questions, though. I will definitely look into that because it'll just be good to know from my side as well. And if I come up with anything and you catch the next broadcast, you can always just remind me of that, and then if I have found something that can be valuable or useful to you, then I can show it to you then. Okay, so let's go and place maybe just a vehicle path. Nice thing about this as well is that when you're creating these vehicle paths, you are snapping to the road. And what that means is the elevations are recognized. So the car actually drives along the road. You know, it doesn't like sort of disappear into nothing or anything like that. So because Infraworks has got that amount of data, right? You've got the different level changes. You can see that the cars just drive smoothly along the actual road as well. So the possibilities with this, I think, are quite limitless. There's so much that you can actually do with this workflow. Let me just increase this lane count to 2. Okay, and let's go 2-way direction. Okay, I need to go 1 lane, two lane direction. Yeah, I can see I got some interactions with the pavement there that I would obviously need to adjust. For this example, I'm not going to adjust it. I'm just going to leave it like that. But yeah, I would be a little bit more specific and precise with my placements. Okay, so yeah, if that is the view that I wanted to create and I wanted to look out in that direction, I could of course now start to just populate this area and make it look a little bit better. So I could go and create some foliage, bring some trees in. I also want to just say that, remember, you are working with a very big file over here. An 80 meg FBX file is still pretty big for Twinmotion, so you do need to have good PC specs to be able to handle this. And also just bear in mind that crashing could be a possibility, especially when you go above a certain file size. And also depending on what graphics card you actually have. So I would recommend saving your project at regular intervals, just to mitigate any problems you may have with crashing. Okay, so that is definitely something that I would bear in mind as well. But let's just start to put some trees in here very quickly, just to give a little bit of life to this area. Okay, and let me go ahead and save this now. Okay, so it's called Cape Town Demo. And we'll also have a look at the file size, the Twinmotion project file size, so we can get an idea of that as well. Okay, so that is 125 megs. Okay, so that is with the FBX file included, and then obviously the rest of the adjustments that we've made so far. Okay, so once again, the trees, for example, they go with the terrain. So you can see that they're not flat. If I go down more to ground level, they're actually increasing the elevation. So that really is such a nice thing about this Infraworks export as well, about this FBX file. Everything is recognized as a surface, as it should be, but the things that you place are all responding to the elevation of the terrain that we've grabbed from Infraworks. So that is a really nice thing to be able to do, because building up terrain just with the Twinmotion and the landscape can be a little bit time consuming depending on the area that you need to build up. So if we can just sort of automate that process, it's going to make things much easier for us. Okay, I can go to my objects. Let's go to city. Let's take a look at some street lights. Okay, do something like this. Okay, so you see, creating this information really quick. Doesn't take a lot of time to populate things inside of Twinmotion, and I can hold down shift and drag if I want to create copies. Okay, so I just needed to rotate them, so now I'm just holding down shift, dragging, and I can copy it. I also have an array tool, so I can actually increase the number, but of course I'm changing my angle here, so I don't want it to, if I have this right now, it'll just kind of go directly into the road, or in this case, indeed, I can see that I didn't actually get the snapping correct. Okay, so rather than doing that, I would need to copy it from the center, not from the plane. If I do it from the plane, it doesn't snap to the surface. But if I grab it from there, it'll snap to the surface. Okay, so again, starting to build everything up a little bit. We can let's make a pedestrian path very quickly. Okay, so paths, character paths. We'll just do a very basic one along the side here for now. Okay, density, let's not make it too dense, just a couple people walking. Again, just for some context. And then the really powerful things as well will come from your environment. So if I go to my ambient, scroll down to HDRI environment, enable my HDRI. Okay, the one that comes through is quite a basic HDRI that I can use, but I have tons of options available to me here in the library. So I'll go to HDR environments. I can go to skies, let's say low sun, overcast. Okay, I got some quite dramatic looking skies over here that I can do as well. So let's go with something a little bit extreme. I mean, yeah, just because that looks quite interesting and intense, the redness of the clouds. So we can grab these bits of information and pull that in to our project, and then obviously adjust rotations, exposure levels, and this is again all before we've turned the path tracer on. So this is all just raster imagery. Okay, and raster rendering. We still have the ability to turn on the path tracer and adjust it from there to get the realism up even more. Okay. Now the chances of crashing when you have a path tracer enabled, I would say definitely increase quite a lot. So that is something again just to consider and be careful of. It looks great. That's what I need, but I hope you will talk about the Twinmotion and UE5 next time. Just the basic and how to import and export model. That is something that I can definitely take a look at. I have not played too much around with Unreal Engine 5, the raw engine myself, but I think the import process, from what I've read, seems to be quite straightforward, which is great to know. I haven't done it myself, but yeah, I will definitely look into that, and we can perhaps make a video on that process as well. Okay, so I can see very nice sky over here. So just adding that HDRI, you can see the difference is quite substantial. Okay, I have intensities that I can adjust. I can of course rotate that HDRI to get exactly the sort of image and perspective that I want over here. I'm actually completely happy with that first one. It looks really nice. And I can go into the details, and I've got a couple of options over here. I'm not going to talk about those now. Those are a bit more detail related. Okay, and let's say we want to turn on the path tracer now. So before I do that, I will just go ahead and save the project again, just to make sure to mitigate anything. And let's turn on the path tracer. So I can turn on from here, or I can just hit R on the keyboard, which is the shortcut for it. So I'll turn on the path tracer, okay, and as expected, it goes very, very dark because I don't have any light sources here at the moment. Okay. But a very easy way that I would be able to bump up the brightness would just be to adjust the sky dome intensity in my HDRI environment. So I can just increase that intensity a little bit, and I can immediately see, there we go, it looks a little bit better, a little bit brighter. Okay. So this is with the path tracer on. And again, bearing in mind that I haven't done very much to this model to get it to this point. You know, if I was just doing this as a project very quickly, I could probably go from Infraworks, you know, from having nothing Infraworks to this product in about 10 minutes, if that. And I think the speed at which you can develop these sorts of images with this realistic context has just, it's increased so much in recent times. So we have really, really powerful tools and workflows available to us here. Specifically with the model builder and Infraworks and Twinmotion. Those two linking together creates quite a nice tool set for us to be able to create high quality images extremely quickly with realistic surrounding and context as well. Okay, and there is obviously a ton more that we can do here. And we can play around with cameras, we can do, I mean, we've got a clay render that we could switch on here. You know, if we wanted to get something like a, so actually, let me just switch that off just before I move away from here, because obviously we have such a big model. Let's just create an image so that we can always just come back to this point. So yeah, if I went in and created something like a clay render, that's like a, you know, an architectural sort of polystyrene image type of thing that I can create. And I can start to exclude things from the clay render, so I can get certain things to come through as full color. Now, because this is such a big FBX file, I actually don't know how this is going to work, but I imagine that majority of things will actually be grouped as one. So maybe this wouldn't work so great. Yeah, so you can see that they're actually all classified as others. But where it would have an effect is actually on my little building that I have over here. So I would be able to exclude certain things. Like I can exclude the glass so that the glass comes through. If I had any characters, that would be great. Vegetation, I can do that. So I can, you know, almost make my model come alive whilst keeping all the context in a polystyrene type format. Okay, bring the cars. Obviously, it cannot do anything with others, because others in this case refers to the entire FBX file that we have. Okay, so interesting opportunities, especially again just having this level of context and this size. You know, you can see that's, I mean, that's quite a nice and very realistic looking image. Okay, that is generally the direction that the sun sets in Cape Town, so actually pretty perfect in that regard. Okay, so what I want to do to just end this off quickly is I will just show you the largest area that you can bring in to Twinmotion from Infraworks. Because remember, Infraworks has that limit of 200 square kilometers. Now obviously 200 square kilometers is massive. I can't really ever imagine a scenario where that much context would be required. But I will show you what it looks like anyway, just because I think it's useful to know. And it's nice to see as well that much information and how much you have access to and what you can do with it. So this file, as you can see over here, that is 890 megabytes. Okay, so 890 megs for the Twinmotion project file. Sorry, but your camera is covering the tab, so I can't see anything. Oh, sorry. Which tab was that actually? Let me quickly switch to one that has a smaller camera. Okay. I actually meant to switch that earlier, so thank you for reminding me. Okay, but yeah, what we're doing now is we're just opening up the, again, just to reiterate, the largest file that is possible here. Could you move the camera to the left a bit? Yes, I did. I do think that there's a delay between the text and the video as well, so when it actually comes through to me, I might have already done it. But just let me know if the current placing is fine, or if I need to move it again. So something that we can note here as well is clearly how much longer this is actually taking to open. Definitely expected, you know, having a file that is almost 900 megs opening up inside of Twinmotion is quite something. That's quite a large file to use just for an AFBX, right? That's just for the info from Infraworks. That's before we've done anything ourselves to the project. Okay, so wait time is something that you would need to consider as well when dealing with these large projects. Okay, but it looks like we are here in the home stretch. Perfect. Okay, that's nice. Great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know as well. Okay, I'm just going to give it just a couple seconds here just to catch up with itself and to stabilize, because I think it needs to load all of the textures and all of the animations and things that you have obviously done in this file. So just give it a little bit of breathing room before I start to navigate too intensely around the file. And again, bearing in mind here that I think that this is, if it is going to crash, this would be the most likely scenario when you're dealing with a really, really big file like this. Okay, so we'll start to, and also I do have other apps open in the background, streaming software up. So the computer is dealing with quite a lot right now, and the fact that it still handles an area of this size, I think is quite impressive. So let me just close Infraworks just to free up a little bit of memory. Beautiful. Hello, Genevieve. How are you? Okay, so I'm going to just slowly do this and zoom out a little bit. Again, I don't want to be too fast because I am worried that the whole thing will just crash. Let me just turn the quality settings as well, just right down to low, because we don't really need quality right now because we're going to be looking at this from a very macro perspective. Okay, there we go. And then it starts to get much better. All right, so as you can see, this is the amount of data that I can bring from Infraworks into Twinmotion with practically about 5 to 10 mouse clicks. All right, so I can see everything, basically. The whole Atlantic seaboard is available, VNA going right up north towards Belleville and Durbanville. We've got all of Sea Point, Greenpoint, Clifton, Camps Bay. Okay, all of this stuff gets captured, and again, there is context here, remember. So any notable buildings that the model builder can build from, it will do so. There is obviously also a lot that doesn't get created, which I can do myself. Okay, and it also brings in the ocean, the water, and what that means again is that's just an opportunity for me to be able to assign a water material to that. Okay, so let's go back over to the city, and also just navigating, just being able to navigate like this with the software so effortlessly is quite something amazing as well. Okay, so this is it. I'm just kind of flying around right now just to give you an idea of how much there is, you know, and how much detail there is as well, like the terrain and the different levels and stuff that come through. Okay. All of your roadways, as we know already, tons of structures. Okay, and again, all of this with basically the click of a button. Quite unbelievable that I don't have to model any of this. There are other ways that you can get Google Map images into Twinmotion, but I don't think any that are as simple and easy as this one. So if you do have access to Infraworks, you can see that there is quite a lot of benefit from having Infraworks as well as Twinmotion as like a packaged bundle, because those two softwares work extremely well together. Okay. Again, the scale of this is obviously huge, and I don't know that you would ever be required to show this much context, but it is possible. It is possible for you to do that. Okay. And once again, full access to modify any of the existing materials here. Place whatever it is that I want over here. So if you spend some time building this up, populating it with some nice info, getting your environment and ambience right, working on the camera angles, you can create an exceptionally realistic image. So we'll go and just switch the path tracer on here as well quickly, just to have a look at what we get. Right, you see path tracer gives us the accurate lighting information from the cars as well, which is really great. Okay, and again a bit dark, and what we can do to adjust that is simply go to our, because there is an HDR environment here as well, so we can just go to our HDR environment and we can just increase the intensity slightly just to get more light into the scene. Okay, so with all of that, and then obviously the exceptional power of Twinmotion to be able to produce high quality raster images so quickly. I mean, we just do just a quick basic image now, just for fun. We can just do an export. So I'll create that image. Let me create it as a 4K image. Won't change anything else, won't apply any sort of specific effects or anything like that. I'll just go through and just export this right now, just so we can get a rough idea of time. Okay, start export, perfect. And we'll get a breakdown of the stats as well, of exactly how long this image took to render out. I will be ending the broadcast quite soon, so in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll see if I can help out with them or not. Can you tell me about your computer's configuration? I'm concerned that my configuration won't be enough to load it. Sure, and maybe you can just tell me what your configuration is as well, and I can maybe give you an idea of whether or not it's going to be good enough to work with. So my current specs are a 3060 GPU. I have 64 gigs of DDR5, but that was a recent upgrade, so I was running on 32 gigs, which it still handled it fine. So you can have 32 gigs of RAM as well. I don't think that that's a problem. DDR4 or 5, obviously 5 would be a bit better. 6800H processor, AMD, and I think that is probably, yeah, that's all the info you need to know. I mean, the main thing for you, if you're doing this Twinmotion work specifically, it is all GPU focused. So the most important thing is to have a strong enough graphics card. That is sort of objective number one. If you're going to be doing anything, I would say, in Twinmotion, but obviously if you're going to be doing things of this size, then the higher graphic cards are going to be far more powerful. And ideally you want to go anything that is from RTX 20 series upwards, so any of the 20 series, 30 series, or 40 series, because that's when ray tracing was available for those cards. And AMD, anything from the 6000 series and upwards. I will say as well, for AMD cards, Twinmotion is not. I don't think that connection or that optimization has been like 100% ironed out. So NVIDIA cards work better currently with Twinmotion. You'll have a more sort of stable experience with it. But those are the cards I think that you should look at. RTX 20 series and upwards, or from AMD side, the 6000 series and upwards. Alright, so that image took 1 minute and 3 seconds. Now, I think it would actually render quicker than that. I think that the computer is just, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Also, obviously, the size of the file plays a big role in the export time as well. But let's just go and have a look. So 12 megs. Okay, this is the image that we get. Again, this is the image that we get with doing absolutely nothing except applying an HDRI background. That is the only thing that was done here. Not a single material change. This is just from Infraworks directly. Not a path traced image as well. It's just raster. And this is the quality that we get. So it's really nice, again, to be able to go from nothing to almost a fully fledged model in a raster rendering in a very short space of time with high quality images. I want to see if there are any final things that I wanted to mention. I don't think there are. The main idea behind this broadcast was just to show the terrain, the surroundings, the context, how easy it is to get that from Infraworks into Twinmotion. And as you can see, it is very easy. So if you do have access to those two pieces of software, you can do this very quickly. And there's also not much of a learning curve. There's just a couple settings that you need to know in Infraworks, which are, again, not many at all. And then a couple things that you want to do here in Twin. The majority of the work I see this is going to be done in Twinmotion. That's how I see it. Infraworks is purely for the context and the surrounds, pulling it into Twinmotion and then developing your project from there. Pulling in your house, your hotel, your residential apartment block, whatever it is that you're doing, pulling that in, placing it accurately within the context, and then being able to develop that model further. So I think that there's quite a lot of benefits to this workflow. But yeah, the context, I would say, is definitely number one, at least for me. Okay, I am going to end the broadcast here. There is, as I said, a slight delay with the video versus the chat, so I'll just hang around here for just a minute quickly, just to see if there are any questions or anything that I can perhaps assist with. If not, I will be ending the broadcast, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching, and I will be turning this into a separate YouTube video as well, which will be posted onto our channel in a permanent format. So obviously I will shrink the time down dramatically, maybe something like a 5 to 10 minute video that just highlights and summarizes what I've been through today. Okay, so I will just have a short form video on the channel showing how to get the Infraworks context into Twinmotion, just focusing on that. Okay, in a much shorter version, so that you obviously don't have to scan through an hour-long broadcast to try and find the relevant information. So you can watch out for that. If you are subscribed, you will obviously get notified about that update. I just want to remind you that every Friday we will be posting videos or doing live broadcasts. Okay, the live broadcasts we do want to do more often because we want to try get a bit of engagement and interaction between viewers and what we do as well, so that you can ask questions, in real time. And if we know the answers, we can obviously assist. So we're trying out the live broadcasts, and we will continue to do it for the foreseeable future. So if you would like to be notified of that, you can just subscribe. Turn the notifications on so that you get notified. But every Friday at 11 well, that is when the broadcasts will take place if we are doing a live broadcast. If we are just posting a regular video, it'll sort of come through at any time during the day on Friday, depending on what commitments we have. But 11 o'clock SAST will pretty much be the standard for anything that we release. Thank you very much for sharing this, very helpful. You're very welcome. Thank you very much for joining again. And I will take your questions into consideration. So I will have a look at the Infraworks. I'll see if I can figure anything out there with regards to your earlier question. And then I will also look into how you can bring Twinmotion info into Unreal Engine, because I know that you can do that. And from what I've read, it seems to be fairly simple. So yeah, I will collect that data. Next time that we have a broadcast, you can pop in and we can see if I manage to figure anything out by then. I think I'll be able to do it for the Unreal Engine. The Infraworks one, not 100% sure about that one. But I nevertheless will definitely look into it and I'll see what I can come up with. Okay, so if there isn't anything else, I am going to again end the live stream now. Thank you so much for watching, and look out for the video summarizing this. It will be posted onto our YouTube channel as soon as possible, definitely before next week Friday. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching.